Obviously, usually in an episode about race, focusing on black issues, you'd want to connect with a Cornel West, a Ta-Nehisi Coates, a Dave Matthews, experts in the field. But I'm going to take Toni Morrison's advice on this. It's time for white people to talk and figure some things out. So tonight I'm speaking to, I mean, honestly, as white a panel as I think I could find. I have an Andrew, a Lisa, and a Chip. This panel is bone. It is alabaster. To my left is Chip Gallagher. He's a professor of sociology at LaSalle University. He researches social inequality and race. Lisa Bond, the resident white woman for Race to Dinner, a group that is trying to have better conversations about race in America. And joining remotely, longtime author and columnist Andrew Sullivan, editor of The Weekly Dish. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to go about this. Here's what I think holds back our race conversation in America. I think at its core, I think white people put blame on black people for the position that they are in, and then believe that white people will lose something in order for black people to gain it. And that's what creates that resentment and difficulty to overcome. And I'll start with Chip, because Chip.
It's Charles. Yeah.
That doesn't help.
No, it doesn't help. Yeah, okay. A significant amount of white people in the United States of America see race relations through a colorblind lens. And I don't mean that whites don't see race. They see someone that's black or Asian. But they don't in any way attach any meaning to the color in affecting life chances. And what that fundamentally means is that race doesn't matter in getting ahead. It just doesn't matter.
They believe that we are in a race-neutral environment.
The playing field has been leveled, and if you make it or you don't...
It's a meritocracy.
It's a meritocracy, and it's a narrative also that does a lot of things. It makes white privilege invisible, and it also makes whites feel that whatever they did, whatever successes they had nothing to do with what happened 50, 100, 200 years ago.
But you have to look at it as... It is difficult. I can see how people would get defensive about, I didn't have slaves. I have not actively participated. I am a part of a system that was built through racism, but my life is hard, and I work hard, and I don't get ahead. So how does privilege factor into it to me? Now, Lisa, you try and get these conversations going.
Where I come from is that this system of white supremacy has done such a good job of teaching us as white people that racism is bad. And when we talk about racism, we're talking about your character flaw. If we say you're racist, it's a character flaw. Mm-hmm. I'm bad, and I know I'm not bad. I think I'm a good person. I think I'm a nice person. And I know that I am racist. And I know that I'm racist because I, every single day, uphold the systems and the structures of racism. And if we don't start having a conversation about that and about the ways that we are complicit every day, daily, if we don't talk about it, then we are never going to see movement.
Andrew, do you think because it always gets framed on that moral level, right, does the moral qualifying of it make resentment the natural outcome of that?
I think one of the issues is that it's very hard to agree with some of the very premises that are being expressed tonight. As if everything is already settled. We know this country is, for example, a white supremacy. Well, I don't believe that. I think it's possibly the most absurd hyperbole I've ever heard. I'm an immigrant, so I have a slightly different view of this. I can tell you, America in 2022 is the most multiracial, multicultural, tolerant, diverse melting pot that has ever existed on planet Earth, and there is no other place on Earth even like it. That's why 86% of our immigrants are non-white.
Let me ask you a question, though, Andrew,
because
I think you bring up an interesting point, and we might be getting hung up on semantics. So the fact that you're an immigrant speaks volumes. It means you chose to come here. But America didn't start that way for black people. They didn't immigrate here. They were living somewhere else, and they were kidnapped and raped and murdered and taken here. And so for you to just say this is a magnificent place that doesn't have racism is actually, I think, more of a foundational lie than anything else.
Yeah.
I didn't say that. I did not say that.
You said that it's the most hyperbole.
That racism doesn't exist. I said the term white supremacy is an absurd hyperbole. For most people, that means the KKK. It means no rights for minorities.
Okay,
and this has
then
been
let's
used
define the term.
Simply to avoid an argument.
So let's take a step back and let's define what we mean by white supremacy. When you say white supremacy, how are you defining it for this conversation?
When I talk about white supremacy and when I talk about racism, I'm talking about power and privilege, the power and privilege that we hold as white people in society, the way in which our structures, our institutions, our systems, how everything was designed with white people in mind and only white people in mind. If you think about who is white in society, how it has morphed.
Oh, dude, I'm a Jew. I was grandfathered in like 50 years ago.
Right.
Here's what they did. Brown people started coming, they're like, we're gonna need some Jews. And so they brought us in.
Absolutely.
It expands.
But it does that to hold up the pillars of the systems that are in place.
And but you think it's purposeful?
It's absolutely purposeful.
Andrew, would your argument be that you don't believe that that's purposeful or that it doesn't exist?
I don't believe it exists.
Okay.
I don't know what these systems are.
Okay, so
give me one system.
All right, redlining neighborhoods.
Capitalism?
No, redlining neighborhoods.
That's a state. That was a state-enforced thing from Jim Crow, which is the one point at which I think absolutely is true.
So you just said it doesn't exist except for that.
No.
Yeah.
No, I said white supremacy doesn't exist.
But so when the New Deal was passed, right? When the New Deal was passed, black people were explicitly not allowed to have those loans. When the Homestead Act allowed white people to get an enormous wealth of land and be able to farm it, black people did not have access to that.
Social Security.
Slaves were freed, when Social Security came,
GI Bill.
black people, when the GI Bill, black people were not. So when you say to me, I don't get how this exists, I'm just having trouble figuring out, like, I mean, you're a bright guy. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Exactly.
Honestly, like, I don't know. So, Chip, you jump in. And I don't mean to attack you. I'm just confused. Chip.
First off, the false analogy is this. Equating 250 years of slavery and then 100 years of Jim Crow with the immigrant experiences of white Europeans from 1870 to 1924. I grew up in an Italian-Jewish neighborhood in Philadelphia, working class, but you know how these folks made it? They got jobs in the government, civil jobs, cops, union jobs. These were all off limits. If you were brown or black, forget it. Here's the real deal about everything, is that whites came to believe that everything good, the jobs, the land, the suburbs, it was theirs. And when blacks try to encroach, that's when you have the pushback. That's when you have riots about busing. That's when you have terrorism. So I don't know, I get Andrew, I know Andrew's history, but like, I don't even remotely understand what he's saying about American history, because it is not in any way, people that have studied it, this is nothing like what he's talking about.
No one is denying this awful history, nor is anyone denying.
Great. So let's talk productively about what we do about it. I think the conversation is then this. We have an awful history. Its remnants are still felt today.
We also have a great history, John.
Say it again?
We also have a great history.
But I think you're minimizing it. You're suggesting that because
I think by calling today white supremacy, you are minimizing actual white supremacy. You have an incredible diversity. To condemn all American history as racist.
I disagree that they're generalizing all white people. The systems that were racist that were put in place.
Systems?
Yes. The systems that were put in place.
I'd like you to explain exactly what they are.
Well, I thought I explained it earlier about the GI Bill and about the New Deal.
That's one thing. I want to know about these systems.
I just explained it. Housing.
That's food. One, and I've agreed that.
Andrew, you're not living on the same fucking planet we are. Honestly. I really don't think you are.
I think you are not living. I think you are not living in the planet most Americans are, which is why this kind of extremism, this anti-white extremism, is losing popular support, is creating a backlash is going to elect Republicans and undo a lot of the good you think you're doing.
This is what happens when you don't talk about it. This is what happens when white people don't talk about it, is you have racist dog whistle tropes like this that actually perpetuate and perpetuate and perpetuate. So I did not come on this show to sit here and argue with another white man. That's one of the reasons that we don't even engage with white men at Race to Dinner.
I'm out.
You know, because quite honestly, if white men were going to do something about racism, you had 400 years. You could have done it. Okay? So
I am 58 years old.
I'm shutting you down right now.
I am not responsible for anyone before me.
The point is, I'm so tired of just engaging in this conversation and this deep hurt that Andrew has about talking about racism. And Chip, God bless you, but I'm gonna put everybody in the thing. All of us white people do this. I don't care if we say we're abolitionists. I don't care if we say we're progressive. I don't care if we're literally members of the KKK. Every single white person upholds these systems and structures of white supremacy, and we have got to talk about it.
If I could finger snap, I would finger snap right now. Let's remove it then from the...
calling me a racist, John.
You've been doing a pretty good job with it yourself there. So, but Andrew, you're taking words out of context and blowing them out of proportion so that you don't have to deal with having to figure out a way to deconstruct the barriers that were put in place for black people in this country and give them a better chance.
Your opening segment
was brilliant. Brilliant. Yes.
Biggest reductionist, one-sided, completely biased position.
Yes, Andrew, you are correct.
When I watched it, I wondered, have you lived in the same country as everybody else for the last 30 years? It was a straw man that you created.
Andrew,
a total straw man.
You can appreciate
in which every white person was bad.
Let me just stop for a second.
Every black person had the same position.
You can appreciate where you live. You can love where you live. And you can honestly diagnose a terrible, terrible illness that has lived in this beautiful place that you call home and love, that you believe has metastasized into a cancer that can kill the very thing that you believe in so deeply about this country. To improve that place and make it into the country that it stated it was in its founding documents is the duty of everybody who lives here. So do not tell me who I am or what I believe, a motherfucker.
I'm just saying that you created a straw man.
I apologize. When you get older, it's harder to control the emotions. But let's talk about solutions. Lisa, I'll start with you. What is the future? How do we heal a country that has a really difficult time dealing with this, as we see from four people that I think like and respect each other and yet still can't have a conversation?
I think the first thing that we need to understand is that all of us white people have a responsibility to engage in these conversations regularly.
But when it gets hot like this, what do you do? How do you back out of that and remind everybody, like, hey, okay, let's take a breath. I think we're all decent, good-hearted people who are trying to do the right thing. We differ in how to do it.
Yes. I think that we have to know that we have to hold people accountable, but we also have to hold them with grace and with compassion. And we have to do each of them.
You know, to Lisa's point, I think at the individual level, there are things we can do. At the big level, what I think is that a lot of racism, when you strip it away, it's about someone trying to take my resources, and status is a resource. We need something akin to a New Deal, to a Marshall Plan. We basically, instead of building another B-1 bomber or another carrier, basically we invest in our infrastructure, schools, bridges. I mean, the list is very, very long.
Right. Andrew, I would think that's something actually that might appeal to you in terms of rebuilding infrastructure and things, because that's not based on, but it's rebuilding areas that are entrenched in poverty and those things.
It can be, absolutely, yes. But I'm sorry to say, I think just white people talking about this endlessly is not going to help actual Black Americans who would deal with it. I have certain ideas about that. I think we need to focus intensely on young education. I think education is crucial. I think figuring out a way to help Black kids have a stable family. The truth is,
yes,
if you have a two-parent married home, you're going to say
something to you, Andrew.
You really are.
I didn't grow up in a stable family. I grew up in a single-parent family.
Well,
and so,
I'm just telling you the data. The data is that 30% of African Americans don't have this. It's the biggest factor in getting people into college and succeeding in life. And if you ignore it, we're going to let these Black kids down.
No, I think, Andrew, I mean, what I'm hearing is like the family, the pathology of the Black family. That was the line. It wasn't the Black family. It was the structures. You know, in the 80s, it was this crack. It's disinvestment. It's white flight. Family stability, there's an element of economic stability and family stability. And, like, that's lost in your conversation.
I feel like your defensiveness and the tropes that you use about the Black family being the cause of entrenched poverty in that community ignores why those families are broken up in the first place, and that's mass incarceration, and that's the way that we viewed the crack epidemic, and that's the economic opportunity over generations that was defined. So you keep trying to remove things from their historical bearings, and I just think that's...
No.
If you can't diagnose the problem, you can't fix it.
We need to think about how we help the family restructure itself, because it's key. It's key.
Let's boil it down then. Why do you think the family got that way?
Because I do think it wasn't marriage became less important. Sex outside of marriage came more for all of us.
But you're not talking about all of us, Andrew. You're talking about...
No, but we also...
You're talking about
what I'm saying is that when you look at white families today, you see the same thing.
Oh, so you're upset about that as well?
Of course I am.
Okay,
I'm not blaming them. This is a family question. Why don't Black people going to do better if your parents stay at home and take care of you until you leave home? It's just a fact.
How are you supposed to do that when you work a low-income job and you don't have childcare?
Well, it's really tough, which is why we need to address that. Absolutely.
But that's what we just talked about.
Of course we do, and yeah, that's important. I agree. I would spend more on that. I'd spend more on schooling. I would spend more on childcare. But I do not think you can dismiss culture.
So that's the point that I'm getting to, Andrew, which I think you've been dodging around. What do you mean by culture?
I mean a culture in which the family unit is not as strong as it might be, and in which the sense of making it in America is regarded as something that might not be.
You're not talking about everybody.
That's the source of a lot of our problems.
You're talking about Black people. But why do you think, you seem to feel like somehow Black culture is uniquely destructive to family? Why?
I don't, to be honest with you, I'm just telling you that's what is the truth. That 30% are still born out of wedlock. It's only born out of wedlock. I mean, it's a complicated question.
Well, that's why I'm asking you to explain it. Tell me.
It's also a function of, well, I think it's a function of social conservatism losing its grip in African-American communities. In the 1930s, the family retention rate, the marriage rate, was, I think, in the 80s, 80%. If it was 80% in Harlem in 1928, and it's only 30% now, we need to get it back to where it was, to have a better chance for kids, for Black kids to succeed. That's what I'm talking about.
Because you care about Black kids.
So we'll look into that. And we'll get there, but people in those communities want a better quality of life. Whatever we have to do to get there for them to attain quality of life. It's not about broken marriage, please. It's about how do we get people to have the quality of life that we all as Americans deserve. I think that we can all agree on, and what a wonderful moment of kumbaya at the end. I've appreciated everyone taking the time to do this. Boy, as it pointed out, some fault lines, we've got to recalibrate and find a way to be open to all different stripes of white people in the conversation, whether they be people who study it, people who spend their lives trying to change it, or people who are very upset about having to do that. Thank you very much, Andrew Sullivan, Lisa, and Chip. All right, we'll be right back.